What is up, everyone? OJ over here from PlayerEssence, and welcome to my village of Nintendo Switch and gaming news. Today we've got some awesome information for you, so let's go ahead and get right into it. So, Mr. Shifty's file size and new screenshots have been revealed. The game size is about 3.6 gigabytes, so it is a little bit bigger than what I would expect for this type of game, but it is an interesting looking title to where you play as this dude, Mr. Shifty, and you kind of like Nightcrawler, teleport through things and punch people in the face. It's one of those one hit and you die type of situations, so you're really going to have to be on your toes in order to get through all the different levels, and you can pick up melee weapons, and it just looks like a really cool indie title. I know I'm going to be getting a review code, I think, at this point, so I'll be able to share some gameplay with you guys beforehand and let you guys know what I think before you just have to download it yourself. But just be aware that you do need 3.6 gigabytes of free space, and you can also check out some new screenshots in the description below over there on Nintendo Everything. Now, moving on to the next article here, Sega says that they're trying to reinvigorate Sonic with Sonic Forces. Product manager Jim Dwyer had this to say. Now, there was more than this, but I'm just going to read a little excerpt of it. He says, Sonic Forces is its own initiative. It's a broader game, a different sort of Sonic than we've done before. It's about reinvigorating Sonic. I won't say Forces is about making Sonic relevant again, because I don't think that's quite the right term. But we understand we have a flagship IP, this brand powerhouse that Sega wants to get back to what it should be. Sonic is a franchise that we've tried to evolve, but it hasn't necessarily worked. I can openly say that. Generations and Colors were huge successes within the modern Sonic world, but it was about taking modern Sonic and making it something more. So I can understand what he's trying to get at here, because it's not necessarily that Sonic necessarily needs to rebuild itself per se. Like, there's been some good modern Sonic games, so it's not like it's been a complete failure 100%. However, there's been various issues here and there when it comes to that, and it's not worked out the way that Sega has wanted it. It's not worked out the way like Nintendo with Mario, where pretty much every single 3D Mario game, even after 3D came into it, so every single post 2D Mario game that came out from the old school worked out very well for Nintendo. Not the same case with Sonic and Sega. There's been some 3D Sonic games that have just flopped completely. There's been a lot of bad reviews. There's just been so many problems, whereas Sega and Sonic was so prominently featured in the 2D era with the Sega Genesis. It was so good, and then things just went really bad. So I can understand what he's trying to do here. I can understand what Sega's trying to do here. But the problem, and the one thing they really need to address, is making sure the controls are some of the biggest things that Sega, I think, and Sonic games necessarily don't always get right. Controls, level design. There's a lot of times when you're playing a 3D Sonic or you're playing a Sonic game in general, and things just come to a crashing halt. It doesn't flow as much as it would, and that is bad game design in times. In certain areas, Sonic games can be so good, but then in other areas, they just really fail. So they need to make sure that they really click and connect those two when it comes to controls and when it comes to level design. If they can nail those two things in a modern Sonic atmosphere, then I think they're going to be okay. But if there's issues within that, you're going to see those scores in the 50s, 60s, maybe some of those 70s. And I think that's where Sonic Colors kind of is. It did well for some things, but at the same time, there was other things that left to be desired when it comes to the level design. So let's hope that they nail both level design and controls, and I think that they'll be good. Alright, I'm moving on to the next article here. Syberia 3 may support Nintendo Switch features such as HD Rumble. WCCF Tech caught up with Elliot, the VP of game production at Microids, for a chat about Syberia 3. While the game is gearing up for its initial launch on the PS4, Xbox One, and PC, the Nintendo Switch version will follow later this year. When Syberia does come to Nintendo Switch, it may incorporate Switch-specific features such as HD Rumble. Here's what Elliot had to say on the matter. We are working on a faithful port of Syberia 3. It was important for us to offer mobility to players to allow them to embody Kate Walker wherever they want. We were thinking about a specific development on the Nintendo Switch with new features, including HD Rumble. We will use the best of this console to offer an unforgettable experience for players. Elliot also spoke about the Nintendo Switch in general, saying, the Nintendo Switch perfectly integrates into Nintendo's DNA, to which innovation and gameplay were always preferred to consoles' performances. Nintendo Switch is finally the console players were waiting for. It's a good mix between mobility and home consoles. We share the same vision of video games than Nintendo. We want to develop games that are capable of seducing as much casual as hardcore gamers, so it was natural for us to develop our main titles on this new platform. In the past, we already worked with Nintendo on developing games on the Nintendo DS and the Nintendo 3DS, so we already know the Nintendo processes. As you might have noticed, during Nintendo's announcement last January about Nintendo Switch, third-party publishers strongly support this new console by developing their main titles such as FIFA or Skyrim on it. There is also a huge desire from Nintendo to support third-party publishers, whether they are worldwide famous or not, by providing them all the required resources. So once again, it's just good to hear that a third-party developer that's going to be making a pretty significant game here. This is not some type of small game. If you've seen Syberia 3, it looks really good. They're going to need a little bit more time to get the Nintendo Switch version out, but it's cool that they might be supporting some of the features that really make the Nintendo Switch unique and even, in my opinion, more fun to play at times, and that is HD Rumble. I think that's really a game changer for many different things, especially when it's implemented really well. So far, we've seen titles such as Snake Pass use it pretty well, but to me, Graceful Explosion Machine uses HD Rumble so well. That's the best so far, but we'll see what other developers have to do. This game, Syberia 3, is actually looking really interesting, and I would love to play that type of game when I'm lying down in bed, pretty much when I'm about to go to sleep. This is the type of game that I'd like to play, so if they're going to bring it to Nintendo Switch and it's a good port, I'll definitely look at picking it up, or at least trying to get a review copy so I can check it out for you guys. And what do you guys think about Syberia 3, and what do you have to say about Nintendo and third-party developers? It is true that the Nintendo Switch seems to be getting a little bit more when it comes to third-party developers. It's just going to take a little bit more time. I think that they're really planning their strategy this time to where they can set them up for success instead of setting them up for failure like they did with the Wii U at launch, having all of those games and pretty much all of them failed at launch when people only bought a few ones from like Nintendo Land and New Super Mario Bros. So we'll see what happens this time, but I do think that Nintendo is providing better tools for developers. Obviously, the system is easier to develop for, and you pretty much get the mobile and you get the home console experience in one go. No more developing for Wii U and 3DS. You're developing just for one Nintendo system. So we'll see how it goes, but it's interesting because that leads into our next article here, talking about third-party developers and probably one of the biggest, if not the biggest, third-party developer, and that is Activision Blizzard, talking about supporting Overwatch on the Nintendo Switch. And this is the director that we're talking about here, so let's go ahead and get into what he had to say on the matter. So Overwatch director Jeff Kaplan noted last month that Blizzard is open to bringing the shooter Overwatch to the Nintendo Switch, though doing so would be very challenging. Let's go ahead and get into what he had to say on the matter. Quote, "I think the problem is we've really targeted a minimum spec in a way that we would have to revisit performance and how to get it on that platform. And also, it's already challenging right now to maintain 3 platforms and patches simultaneously, which is something we've finally been able to achieve. Our first couple of patches would come to PC first, then later on the console. And a lot of that is because you're working with Microsoft and Sony and you want to be compliant to their ecosystems. Adding a third ecosystem to that just adds a lot of complexity for us as well. But I always like to tell people we're very open-minded about what platforms we could be on. Just because we're not on a platform right now doesn't mean we won't reconsider in the future. So we stay aware of all these things." So I do want to talk about this just a little bit because I actually posted a tweet on Twitter to Activision Blizzard and to the Overwatch team, and I was like, hey, you guys want my money or not? The Nintendo Switch offers something that the PS4, Xbox One, and PC just don't offer. They offer the ability to play Overwatch anywhere you want. If you think that is something that it should just be glossed over or it's not worth revisiting when it comes to things, then you guys are insane, because I think that Overwatch, this type of game, would work so well on a mobile platform. It would work so well on a mobile platform, and this is why you guys have world-class designers. And this is the reason why I don't like some of this PR speak, because a lot of this is so much PR speak inside here. You guys have world-class designers, you guys have world-class engineers, you guys make literally billions of dollars, millions and billions of dollars. You guys have the resources, the funds, and all of that to make this happen, and we get this type of stuff. You have the resources and funds to hire someone else to help you out to do this if need be. You have all that. You have the support from Nintendo as far as development tools and all that. You know you can get this done, yet there's all of this speak inside here. You know you guys can. Obviously, the Nintendo Switch is not as powerful as Xbox One or PS4, but it's pretty close when it comes to things. When it comes to certain things, you can definitely get it done. And I just feel that this is the type of thing that we need to see developers kind of shift the gear as far as thinking what Nintendo can do with the mobile platform. Now, some have came over. We have the Syberia 3 developer that says, hey, you know what, I'm pretty sure they're facing their own challenges too from bringing it over, but they're still going to. So the one thing that I would say to him is like, look, you can get my money again or you can not, because I don't really play Overwatch anymore on my PS4 or my Xbox One or anything like that. But I sure as heck would play a mobile version of Overwatch because I can play that anywhere I want. I can play it on the couch lying down before bed. So they really need to think about that, about tapping that new audience, getting those extra sales, getting a whole new generation potentially into the Switch. It's a popular platform at this point, obviously not as popular in terms of sales as Xbox One or PS4, but that could help you break into areas that Overwatch didn't do as well, like Japan, because the Nintendo Switch is a hot console in Japan. So I would love for them to think about that when it comes to supporting Overwatch on the Nintendo Switch. Now listen, if it doesn't come, it doesn't come. I already have the game on PS4, right? You can buy it on different platforms. But at the same time, remember, he doesn't rule it out and say that it's not going to happen. But I will say this, because Blizzard is kind of like this all the time. Like last generation, we saw Diablo 3 on consoles, right? All right, PS3, Xbox 360. Was there a minimum spec that you targeted there for the reason why it didn't come to the Wii U? But it came to every other system? PS3, Xbox 360, PS4, Xbox One, PC, but it didn't come to Wii U. Was there a spec problem with that? Because the specs on the Wii U are better than PS3 and Xbox 360, and we didn't see your game, Blizzard, Diablo 3, on that system. So when he says stuff like, oh, well, we've targeted a minimum spec, that's the stuff that I'm talking about where it's like PR talk. Well, then what happened with Diablo then? Like, see, this is what Blizzard does. You know what I'm saying? Like, they'll just make up these type of things whenever it comes to Nintendo. They did that with the Wii U. Where was that at? Where was your game? That was a minimum spec with anything with that. It could have ran on the Wii U, yet we didn't get Diablo 3 on the Wii U, and now this at this point. So I think, like I said, PR speak, maybe when the Nintendo Switch is more successful, maybe they already have something planned or they're working on it. Maybe he's playing coy, or maybe he's playing a little shifty when it comes to those things like that, but we'll see. Like I said, it's not off the table at this point. Based on how the Nintendo Switch does in terms of sales, I definitely think that this game, Overwatch, could come to it, but we'll have to wait and see what goes down there. Alright guys, that wraps it up for this video here. Go ahead and hit that like button if you did like it. Let me know you guys want more content like this going forward in the future, and subscribe to PlayerEssence for the latest news, reviews, discussions, and more. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll catch you then just for the next video. Peace.